Okay, so for the advanced jam, for this particular track, again, I'm using pretty much all of the same scales, but there's a lot more going on technically. I've got more runs, I'm trying to use up more of the fretboard. And again, just as with the first jam, use speed really as a tension building device in order to create some kind of sort of peaks and troughs, if you like, in the solo in terms of the sort of speed dynamics, if you think of it that way. So sometimes we're playing fast to create tension, sometimes we're playing slow melodies. Again, some more rhythmic kind of devices, so I'm trying to play slightly more syncopated, which means off the beat, and adding some definite chromaticism in. So what I'm doing, basically, an easy way of adding chromaticism, even at an advanced level, is twofold. The first thing you can do is approach each of the chord tones from each of these chords from below, by a semitone, or above, but below tends to sound better. So you can do things like over the D minor 7, just approach each of those chord tones from a semitone below. Which is very successful, sounds great, anything like that. You can even just play completely chromatically. I mean, a few times, on this and Jam 1 actually, I just played completely chromatic. So at the end there, I was kind of more within in the sort of D Dorian kind of realm, but I played just complete chromatic scale. I didn't even try and make it look like a Dorian scale or sound like a Dorian scale. But that kind of speed-based chromatic playing works really, really nicely. Again, as within the first jam, I used a tiny bit of the D diminished scale, and again, you could use the B flat diminished scale or the G diminished scale over the B flat minor 7 or G minor 7 chords. That's going to work really nicely. Again, some triad-based playing. Again, just kind of the same ideas as in the intermediate jam, but just brought up a level in terms of phrasing and technique. I think I played a lot more notes, there's less space involved. So, you know, those kind of things sort of bear in mind. You might want to keep the intensity technically, but kind of leave a little bit more space, possibly when you're sort of jamming with me. But nothing too crazy harmonically going on. Lots of major 7s over the minor 7 chords, as we mentioned in jam number 1. And then over the A7 sharp 5 chord, one thing I was really conscious of, and you definitely need to be conscious of, is that when we get through that chord and we go back onto the D minor 7 again, we resolve our line onto a chord tone. Okay, so we're playing a line based around our A altered scale, and we make sure it resolves very nicely onto one of the chord tones of the D minor 7 chord to sound nice and strong and melodic. Okay, so practice playing lines based around maybe 8 notes, just playing those 8 notes of the A altered scale, and see if you can land on a chord tone. So you might go. So there I played 8 notes, and my last note, or the 9th note that I played at the end of the phrase that's beat 1 of the next bar, where our D minor 7 occurs, I landed on the 5th. Okay, so anything like that, just make sure you're trying to land on strong resolutions with those kind of more interesting scale choices, so the altered scale here. And again, it's well worth making use of that C minor pentatonic over this A altered chord that we talked about, even in the basic jam, but when you're doing it over the sort of thinking more advanced terms, try and play some kind of more interesting pentatonic runs, some of the stuff we talked about with wider intervals. Really, really cool sound over that A7. Okay, I'm not sure how much I did that because it was an improvised solo, but it's something to sort of bear in mind and think about. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. Let's move on and jam over the third tune.